Good morning, everybody. Today is Friday, October 16th. Getting started with Tri-State Life here on Facebook. We're going to give just a quick second, a couple of minutes here to get, or a couple of seconds here to let people get logged on here. Today we're going to have Russ Thompson, Executive Vice President of Roadmaster Group Tri-States. He's going to be sharing some things with us. Anybody who's driving, once again, please don't watch this now. That's not a safe activity. This will be recorded and left on our YouTube channels as well as Facebook. And yeah, in the meantime, any comments, questions, or whatever. Once again, please don't watch this now. Please send them in. There. So yeah. And so Russ is not going to be seeing your questions and comments, but I will, and I will, send them, or give them to Russ, to address here. Just send them in anytime. Russ will have breaks, where he can, answer any questions, comments, but I'll also interject, if there's something, that's really apropos to what he's specifically talking about, at that time. Brian Ernston, good to see you. We'll get started here in about 15 seconds. Good to see you, Brian Ernston. I hope you're feeling better. I know that there's some challenges there. Chad Bruff, good. Oh, he's on home time. Good for you, Chad. Happy for him. We've got about 22 drivers on now. Hi, Jill. Bill, okay. So Russ, if you're ready,
yeah,
we'll get rocking and rolling. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning to a few people on the West Coast, and I guess good afternoon to everybody else across the country. I want to do two things today. First, give just a quick fleet update, and how are we doing? I think that's important that we get out to everybody. And then secondly, I want to talk about a few issues we're seeing with our fleet on a kind of a safety service maintenance side that I think you guys will find interesting, and I think some things you can help us get accomplished. So first on the fleet and how are we doing? 2020 I think will go down as the craziest year that I think I have seen in the industry, as far as, we lost 500 loads a month from what our normal is, and that's a lot. That's about 20% of what we do. So as soon as April hit and the COVID and businesses shut down, we lost about 500 loads. We got busier in the military, we got busier with some commercial, we just basically moved the fleet and some other things. So we're still not hauling those 500 loads, but we're actually hauling the same amount of revenue miles. So our length of hauls is increased about 20%. Our revenue has been really good. I think probably our company drivers and our owner operators both have probably seen these very long length of hauls. I mean, we've seen some stuff, like Quebec all the way to Nevada, 3,200 mile length of haul. Some really big stuff, and that's really, it's helped us immensely. That you think if you can do the same revenue miles with 500 less loads, that's 500 less trailers you guys got to touch. It's 500 less deadheads, searching for trailers, delivering, all those kind of things, and yet you still get the same revenue miles. So that's been a positive trend, and I've always said in every major downturn, you learn something new, and I think what we've learned is focused a lot more heavily on these long lengths of haul. We're getting more aggressive, whether it's commercial or military bids, and you're just going to continue to see more of that from us. So anyway, thank you for your efforts. May was our hardest month. August and September have been some of our very best months. As far as, we're not hitting our top revenue numbers, but we're very profitable. We've been running well. Far more, if someone said, hey, you're going to be missing 500 loads, how will you guys do? And if you'd asked me this 6 months ago, I'd say it's going to be really tough. Now I can look at it and say, it's okay. Our fleet's doing really well. Our miles are great, our revenue's great, and it's been doing really well. So if you have any other questions on revenue and how we're doing, that's just kind of the update on that. We're excited about the fourth quarter. What we see is the big expediters is as COVID has kicked in online sales have went crazy because people aren't going to the clothing stores. They're not going even to the grocery stores. A lot of people are just clicking and having it delivered. So we're already seeing huge demand from, you know, the Amazons and the FedExes and the UPS folks of the world that they need expedited freight. And this is, the holiday season hasn't even kicked off yet, and we're seeing a lot of inquiry to, can we do more with them? So I think it's gonna be a crazy fourth quarter, and hopefully that bleeds into the first quarter and, you know, keeps us going through next year. But I guess the news to everybody is we're healthy, we're doing great. We bought 97 brand new trucks and about 160 new trailers this year. Next year is somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 new trailers, vans and flats, and then somewhere around 75 new trucks, I think is what our plan is. Mainly because we just don't have the refreshment that we needed this year. So that is the update. On the safety side, I just want to share a couple things that we've seen and you guys just need to be aware of. We've had some wheel end failures. These are trailer tires, wheel bearing failures that have resulted in a fire on that wheel end. And you probably maybe heard of a couple. You know, we did lose one load, and why we need to be very concerned because we all know what we do. You know, we're an AA&E carrier as well as hazmat, and having any type of fire is a critical piece. And that's why I want to bring what's causing it. Anytime these things happen, we do a complete thorough investigation. We have to report back to our customers, sometimes to the DOD and the DOT, as to what happened and what are we doing. So I want to make sure that you know, we share that with you guys, because you are the first person that sees it and what's going on. So excuse me one second. And I brought some parts to show you. I always like show and tell with truck parts. So the first thing we're going to look at is what types of failures are we seeing. So really you have, you know, brake fires, you have tire fires, and you have wheel bearing failures that end up in a fire. And one of the most critical things that I want to convey to you guys is you don't have a lot of time when these things happen on the road. So the two that we just got done investigating, I just want to share with you a little bit of information on those. So when you look at you know, brake fires, you got, you know, where it's just you're going too fast down a hill for whatever reason, and all 10 brakes. You know, basically you have 18 wheels, but you only have 10 wheel ends, and you overheat all the brakes. And you've probably followed a truck down a hill where you get that smell, that metallic-y smell. When you smell that, that's actually the resin in the shoe starting to burn. And that's over 1,000 degrees when that starts happening. So this wheel end is 1,000+ degrees that you're smelling. You shouldn't smell that stuff on brake applications. If you're smelling it and you see somebody, any smoke coming off the back of those things, they're overheating. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because obviously, you know, people have probably been in these predicaments. You know, you need to pick the right gear. You know, get all the engine brakes running. That should be your main mode of keeping you under control. But if you're having to ride your brakes hard all the way down a grade, you're just going too fast. And if you're seeing smoke coming off the truck or trailer brakes, you're in a critical state. You're over 1,000 degrees temperature. And why is that important? Tires are very hard to catch on fire. You know, you can throw a match at them. You can throw a piece of newspaper that's on fire into the inside of them. They're not going to start on fire. It takes 750 degrees to start a tire on fire. When you're coming off and you're smoking those brakes and you start seeing smoke coming off, you're 1,000 to 1,300 degrees coming off those brakes. So well above. And I'm going to kind of walk through what happens when these things get this hot. The two issues we've had recently were not all 10 brakes coming off a hill. They were one brake. So one brake overheating is caused, it either cammed over, which that means how the brake is actuated, it actuated all the way over and it can't come back. So the brakes are applied. But that wasn't what happened to us. The other issue is loss of air to the emergency brake. So what I took a picture of is, this is basically on almost, you know, on your 4 trailer wheel ends and all these, you know, these 2 fires we had recently were on the trailer. This is a brake can. And what had happened is they're going down the road, On one of them, it's really clear on their dash cam. They ran over a gator, which is a piece of retread, and you can see it. 12 minutes later, it's on fire. So what had happened is they had torn the emergency line off, and that's why I brought in some props. This is a brake can. And if you don't know how parking brakes work on a trailer is, from here down is a massive spring. So when you release your brakes, you're compressing this spring, is what you're doing. And so that allows the wheel to turn. So air pressure rushes in here when you release the brakes, when you push in the dash button, compresses the spring. Well, on the last two fires we had, they tore the air hose off that compresses the spring. So the emergency side got torn off. That allows the spring to fully compress, and now that brake is fully deployed. It's engaged. And that spring puts about 60 pounds of pressure to the brake shoes. So just picture 60 pounds, if you did a 60-pound brake application in your truck, that's a pretty hard brake application. So one brake out of your 10 brakes has 60 pounds applied. Are you going to feel it? You're going to feel it a little bit. But if you're fully loaded 80,000 pounds, that one brake being applied, you're going to feel somewhat. Are you going to see air pressure losses? Yes. But there's a lot of air in the truck and the trailer. So you got to remember, it takes time. There's two big tanks on the truck. There's two big tanks back on the trailer. So the gauge isn't going to go all the way down rapidly, but you're going to see air loss on it. And the most critical thing on this is when you run over something, and the other one, both of these where they ran over debris in the road and they kicked it up. One truck stopped, one truck didn't stop. That was the difference. The truck that did stop, everything was under control. The tire did not light up. It was hot, it was smoking, but they stopped within that 10-minute window. The other truck didn't stop till they were flagged over that major smoke was coming over, and we did lose the load and we did lose the trailer. The truck got disconnected and off of it. But what I really want to convey to everybody is you're doing 65 miles an hour and in 15 miles it's going to light up. You need to pull over and you need to check, because it's going to take, it doesn't take a lot of time.
Hey, Russ, let me jump in for a couple of questions, and then Ken Armstrong has a comment, here. How would a driver see, if there's an airline issue or whatever on their trip inspections? I mean, is there telltale signs? I mean,
one of the things you can do, and what you should do, is like if you pick up a trailer, or let's say you did run over something and you want to check, leave your truck brakes set, but release your trailer brakes. Make sure you're on level ground. So your truck brakes, truck brake parks are still set. Release the trailer brakes, walk back and see if you hear an air leak. Because as soon as you release those brakes, it's sending air into this side of the can, and it's taking this big long spring and it's compressing it, which releases the shoes from the drum. And the same thing with the truck. You can leave your trailer brakes applied and release the truck. These parking brakes are on the truck drive axles and they're on the trailer axle. So there's usually 8. There's always 4 on a trailer. On some trucks, there's only 2 on the front axle, and they don't put them on the back axle. But most of our trucks, except our Volvos, have 4 on them. But that's how you check. Do I have a park brake problem? Because when I release those trailer brakes, I've energized this can. I've sent 120 pounds air pressure to compress this spring. That's how I release my brakes. If I lose one of these little air lines off that, this rod moves forward and applies the brake. It's just that simple. So the other line, what it feeds is when you hit it with your foot. So if you're doing a pre-trip and you want to know if I have an air leak on the service side, when you push your foot on the brake pedal, air goes into this side and it moves this rod to depress the brake. So hopefully, I answered that question.
So if something were to happen while you're driving, and as you point out, hopefully you would feel the resistance or whatever. But let's say you really don't, and let's say, man, I think I ran over a gator. I think everything's all right. I don't necessarily want to pull over with traffic. I can't pull over. Is there other ways that you can tell? I mean, will you see a loss of fuel efficiency? You know,
you're going to see the engine working harder.
Okay,
I mean, a lot harder. I mean, and here's the thing. I worked for a very large trucking company, and we had 20,000 trucks. We had one of these brake fires every week, so we investigated hundreds of these. And it's just because we ran 5 million miles a day, right? You're going to drive over a lot of stuff. It wasn't that they were unsafe. It's, you guys know you drive over gators probably every day, for sure every week. But when we started measuring it, the scariest ones of these is this is like a 3/8 airline coming into here. What if whatever you hit only took half of it out? So it's a cut. So air is still going into this can, but maybe it's instead of it's a complete loss of 60 of all air in it, maybe it's only giving 10 pounds of pressure into this brake and the compressor's making up the rest. Your air gauge isn't going to go down. Yet this brake is applied with 10 to 20 pounds on it. It's not going to light up in 15 miles, but it's going to light up in 30 miles, some number, because it's just friction and time. With 60 pounds of pressure of this spring pushing, then maybe it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes before a fire occurs. If it's a slight cut in that airline, maybe that's 30 minutes. I guess the biggest point I got to make is if you run over something, immediately you need to see what's going on with my air, what's going on, and you're gonna, I mean, when I'm talking a little chunk of rubber, things like that, that's not what I'm talking about. Like we had a street sign that was a yield sign. We ran over it this week. Popped up, went back, cut the airlines on the trailer. We looked at the dash cam, and you see the sign, and you see our truck immediately pull over. They wanted to see what was happening. When that happens, someone comes up and they replace the airlines, and it's $120 or something, and you're back on the road really quick. The key is you gotta look. Is there any questions, Mike?
So Nate Derrick, who is in our breakdown department, has a suggestion that during your trip inspections, you can squirt with the water bottle, I think is what it's saying, and look for bubbles, which will help, for the airlines there. Ken Armstrong, I'm not sure how to address this, but I'm sure is what is company doing about owner-operator drivers who only use trailer brakes, not their truck brakes, on downhill grades? He says that he recently saw an owner-operator doing that, through Virginia. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, if you're just using the trailer brakes to slow that vehicle down, trying to save your truck brakes, and that's what an owner-operators sometimes will do, is they don't want to sacrifice theirs. It's a very dangerous practice. If the roads are slick and you're locking up the trailers, if you're smoking trailer brakes, I mean, it is a very dangerous practice, and I would say don't. And I'll tell you this, in 500,000 miles, you won't have to reline your truck brakes if you manage them correctly. You'll probably have to do your steer axle brakes one time. So what you're trying to save is most owners aren't keeping their trucks 500,000 miles. So riding the trailer brakes on the company trailers, are you going to get an extra year out of your truck? Maybe, but you're risking a lot by doing it. I certainly would not recommend doing it.
Anyway, Miguel Escalante shares, an experience that he had where he lost a brake can, there. But I think we're good to keep going. So.
And I do want to say this. I like the two. I've seen a deer get hit this week on the dash. That's one thing nice about these dash cams is, when drivers call and say, "Hey, I just hit a deer," you see the deer. The two I've seen this week, one was a sign, one was an animal. And if you can picture a 150-pound animal tumbling underneath your truck, there's 400 feet of airline underneath the truck and the trailer. Wow. I mean, it's huge. The opportunity to tear something out is huge. Both trucks immediately pulled over. So very safe practice, great job. And that's, please, I'm just as an educational instruction here. So really you have your two lines, one's service, one's brake, or one's emergency. Hopefully everyone understood the emergency side and how to check it. Tire fires. It's hard to light up a tire. Like it says it takes 750 degrees, but I went to the yard this morning, and this is the first tire I seen in a pile. This tire had ran so long that it's starting to destruct. It's powdered inside. It was hitting this close to the 600 and 700 degrees. Now it didn't light up, but the bead is melted all the way around it. So it was coming down across the rim. It was coming apart. It was very close. And what makes a tire fire happen is two things. When you overheat the brakes, you take out the wheel sill. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So when I got a 1200 degree brake drum that's glowing cherry red, and all of a sudden I got over a pint of oil inside the hub that's got a wheel sill and a hubcap. You melt that sill out, that oil comes into this 1200 degree brake drum, and that's when the fire starts. The brake shoes rarely start on fire. They smoke, they stink. It's the oil from the hub that starts the fire. Now I've elevated the temperature again, and that's what starts your tire on fire. So that's one way tires start on fire. And here's another thing, like when you're driving, rarely will the tire be on fire because the air is cooling it. It has to be above 750 to burn. It's when you stop. So if you see, if you've been driving and you're smoking and smoking and smoking, it's probably the brakes and the oil burning at that point in time. As soon as you stop, the heat isn't being blown away by the wind. That's when the tire starts. How do you put out a tire? Get your fire extinguisher as quick as you can, and you have to cool the tire. A fire extinguisher doesn't cool, it suppresses flames, but you have to cool it. So this tire was close to catching on fire, and it's just something, they just kept going. And I want to talk a little bit about some things on our trailers that help with this. What is that? Okay, we're going to go to wheel bearing failures next, and then I do have some auto inflation and some stuff on that. Is there any questions on tire failures?
No, I have a question. So if you have access to water, is it safe to throw water on smoking brakes and that kind of stuff? I mean,
yeah, the tire's not going to do anything. I mean, you got to be careful. It's the inside tire. It's not ever the outside. It's always the inside that's going to light up because that's the closest to the heat source. And it's going to be the inner sidewall. I mean, if you're standing on the back of it, and I got to tell you guys, you got to be careful. If it's a blazing fire, hit it with your fire extinguisher the best you can. Call 911 as quickly as you can. As soon as you exit that truck and see what happens back there, get 911 and get a fire department coming. If you can't control it, then you need to disconnect and get yourself out of harm's way in your truck.
But if you do have access to water, it should be safe to throw water.
It's not going to cause it to get any worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's not like a chemical type thing where some things you don't want to put water on or whatever.
No, it's not. So when you have a tire failure, it's critical. You need to stop and get it fixed. Wheel bearing failures. We have very few of these, and they're pretty much all isolated to our older trailers that we are. By this time next year, we maybe will have, I think we have 300 of these today in the fleet out of 1,500 trailers. I think there's 300 of these. All the older flatbeds have this issue or potential compared to the newer trailers. So this is one we had 2 weeks ago. So this thing you see hanging here used to be this thing here.
Wow.
That was the wheel bearing.
Wow.
Wheel sill failures are very easy for you guys to pre-trip on. As I mentioned earlier, there's about a pint of oil inside the hub. And so you have a hubcap on one side, you have a wheel sill on the other. No, I didn't bring the wheel sill in. Anyway, that oil is inside of that. There's only two places the oil can go. So if you're doing your pre-trip, if the hub's clean and the wheel's clean, this is good. But if you look underneath the trailer and you see any grease or oil inside those brake shoes, and they look nasty. When you've had a complete wheel sill failure, those brake shoes look bad. You can tell that there's, oil in them. They've collected dust. You're looking at the other three wheel ends that look nice and clean. Then you see one that is greasy, you've got a serious problem. So I want to spend a little bit of time on how do you check this stuff? right? Most of you probably know, you've been in a long time. Just a refresher, and I want to go through the different hubs we've got, because we've got 3 different types, okay? So what happens here is, the picture is, it failed, the bearings failed, and then the whole wheel assembly, which weighs about 1,000 pounds, left the vehicle at 65 miles an hour, and thankfully on this one it rolled out into a field and it stopped. So really we have oil bath, and that's what I want to talk about a little bit, and we have grease pack. Oil bath is easy to tell. It's got a rubber plug. It's got, fill and add levels on it. It's clearly marked. And if at some point in time this window is old and you can't see in it, I used to just pull them out. If you dip your finger in and the oil's to there, you got oil. If you dip it in and it's dry, you can't take it. You just can't drive it. But these things are easy to check. So your steer axles on every truck have these. Every steer axle in our company has an oil bath seal, a little smaller hubcap than this one probably, but you need to look at them. I got a few pictures I'll show you. And then we have grease pack. Grease pack is a much more reliable system, and it's mainly because how thick grease is. That's really the only thing, the main difference between this. So we have synthetic grease inside the hubs. Those hubcaps are here like this. And this one here is made for the auto inflation stem that comes out of here, but you can't check these. They're not, grease isn't going to have a level. So a grease pack hub does not have a way to check it. So if there's no way to check it, it's a grease pack. Wheel seals will still fail on these, so you still got to look and see, is there grease and oil, blah, blah, inside the brakes. It'll be in the brake drum. There's only 2 places it can go. It's either in the wheel or it's in the brake drum. So wheel seals and bearing failures are very easy for you guys to see if you got a problem, because there's only 2 spots it can be. I got a greasy, grimy wheel. So you'll see grease all the way through here. Or I've got it, so this could be clean, but the wheel seal failed, so the brake is going to be full of grease and oil. Auto inflation, while I'm here, I want to talk about it. These hubs have got thermal alert. So if this wheel end hits 700 degrees, it melts out a lead plug. This hubcap I got, it's in the stator is where it is, so I don't have the stator. But it melts out a plug in the end of this, and there's a loud whistle in there. So if you ever hear something that's got auto inflation on it, whistling, and it's a scream, it's not just a light whistle. This hub has gotten hot and melted the plug out. And regardless if you set the brake, as soon as you hook to the trailer and hook air, it's going to start screaming. So if you do have that, that is a telltale sign. The other thing, these hubs are grease pack. There's no way to check them. Look at the back. And they have thermal alert. Every trailer we own that has this has thermal alert. So it will be screaming. If it gets too hot, it melts that plug out, and it's just telling you, I got a serious problem. The other thing they've got on these trailers is right up here is a light. On every trailer with auto inflation, that light lights up when it's filling a tire on the back. So if you just connect to a trailer and the light comes on for 4 or 5 minutes and goes off, that's probably normal. Tires lose about 1 to 2 pounds a month, just as the air bleeds actually through the sidewalls of tires. So having that light, but if you're driving down the road and that light comes on, that means it's airing full time. That means it can't stop. So if you see that when you're driving, you got a tire problem. You need to pull over and see which tire just failed, because it's your full compressed air is trying to make up the difference, and that's what that light is telling you. Here's a picture. So our old flatbeds all have these hubs, and that's this other one I showed you. That's an oil bath hub. Red plug, easy to tell. This was at our shop this morning, and hopefully you can see this line. It says full. That's the oil level in that hub. Basically, if you look at it, it's there. And there again, you can always pull out the plug. You get a little dirty, but I've dipped my fingers in a lot of them and see what it is. Steer axle, I told you, every steer axle is oil bath. You know, here's one of our trucks, oil bath, the red plug gives away. Now, some of the Kenworths I think have black plugs. They're still an oil bath still. The main thing is, hopefully you can see the level, it's full. So, you know, and that's the last slide I had. Just to bring to everyone's attention, we don't have a lot of this kind of stuff happening, but the most critical thing for you guys is make sure these hubs are full. As you're doing your pre-trip, look at your brakes and make sure that if there's grease and oil in any brake shoe or brake drum, and you can tell. I mean, it's you guys have been out there a long time. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You got a serious problem that's starting. And then when you run over something, you don't have a lot of time. You know, on the one that did catch on fire, they said, hey, we was going to stop in 20 miles at the next truck stop and was going to check it. You don't have 20 miles. You got about left in maybe 10 minutes to 15 minutes at the tops, and then you're going to have a major issue. So it's for your own safety, safety of the public, the cargo we haul. If you hit something you think got kicked up, you need to pull over and you need to check. Do we have any more questions, Mike?
No, other drivers have made comments and observations and shared, some best practices, with each other, which is a great thing to do.
And I put a letter together, and I'll get it out to everybody as well, as far as just kind of the sequence of events that happen and what happens.
And so we'll get that letter emailed to everybody. And Russ, I think it's useful for us to just make this observation too. I think this has been great information. Many drivers have shared great information and great reminders, if nothing else. Certainly, I drove for a couple of years, and this is the details that I wasn't aware of, type of thing. So I think there's others that feel that way. But I think the other really cool thing is for us, here in this company, we have experts, trucking experts, that can, that we're led by, and it's not that Russ just sits behind a desk all day, although that is kind of what his job is now, right, to make big decisions. But, he's got 20 years of being able to get into the weeds and explain and understand, how this stuff works. And that's who's making the decisions for us, So anyway, it's... And
just a couple more things. And since we're talking about maintenance, I'll just share a couple more things with you guys. Is the thing I love about maintenance and looking at trucks and trailers is they tell a story. If you're an owner operator or a company driver and you look at your 8 drive tires and one of them's not wearing the same, it's probably got a slow leak. It's got a problem. Or if the front axle is wearing nice and square, but the back axle is not, well, it's skewed. It's out of alignment. It may be out of alignment 1/4 of an inch, but it's taking tire wear off that back tire, and it's taking horsepower. And we see some trucks coming in with the whole back axle almost completely worn out, and the front axle's good. I mean, it took a long time to get it that way, but maintenance problems that are going to really give you guys issues, they all tell a story. Whether it's if you have one brand new tire sitting next to one that's almost worn out, you're going to see it. That smaller tire is actually skidding every single mile that it turns, and it's wearing out quickly. But as you guys do your pre-trips and you're walking around, if you look inside the brake drums, you look at the wheels if there's no oil in them, and the wheels are clean and shiny. Check the oil levels. When you release the brakes, you need to have somebody, like I mentioned earlier, leave the truck in park, release the trailer. That'll tell you got a leak, a slow leak on the line back there on your park brakes. This stuff doesn't happen a lot in our fleet. At a company that ran, because we run 1 million miles a week. The other company I worked for and was involved in maintenance for 20 years, they ran 5 million miles a day. So you just seen a tremendous amount of stuff that could possibly happen. But it all tells a story. If you get a check engine light on, we are linked into your engines through on command. We can read those fault codes. So if you don't know what it is, you can call breakdown and say, hey, this light just came on. Can you tell me what's going on? We can tell you. So Phil, if light comes on and you don't know exactly what that check engine light is, call On-Road. They can tell you. They can go on into OnCommand's portal. It runs through the Qualcomm. So if the engine has a fault, goes through the Qualcomm, sends it to OnCommand. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you guys for your time and efforts. And as I said, for a crazy year and what we've been dealing with, I've been just extremely pleased with how all of our driving partners and people have reacted. We've done a great job, and stay safe. In our office, a lot of people are home because schools aren't open for their kids, so they're working from home and trying to take care of kids at the same time.
A quick question from owner-operator Teresa Hamlet. Can you read owners' fault codes on their motors?
If we've registered your engine, we can. If it's a lease truck, we register the engine. If you're an owner and you want us to, all you got to give me is your engine serial number, and we have your truck number. So we know the OmniTrax unit that's in your truck. We just need to, what we do is we go to OnCommand and to Detroit or Cummins or Volvo and say, we want the fault codes from this engine. So yes, we can do it for you. If you'd like us to do it, we'd gladly do it.
We don't do it as a default, but we can on request.
The only reason we don't is we typically don't get their engine serial numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
We get their truck numbers and VIN numbers, but if you give me your engine serial number, we can link you straight in.
Okay. Okay, great.
That a wrap?
I think we're good. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.